U.S. Tax Court is a court, in many respects, and it has the power to render decisions in certain types of tax cases, but it is not a court in other respects. The U.S. Tax Court is an Article I court, not an Article III court. Article I courts are created by Congress and answer to the President of the United States. The President appoints and can remove the judges, which is not true of Article III courts. Article III courts are independent of the legislature and the executive branch. The U.S. Tax Court does not necessarily follow the rules of civil procedure as Article III courts do. The U.S. Tax Court generally applies the federal rules of evidence, but it has its own procedural rules. Most taxpayers do not hire attorneys to represent them in matters before the U.S. Tax Court. Attorneys are almost always required in Article III courts. Most states have a state tax board or, for the state of Texas, the State Board of Administrative Hearings. These state boards fulfill the same function as the U.S. Tax Court in their state tax systems. Unlike the U.S. Tax Court, for most states, these quasi-judicial boards do not try to be courts. They are clearly government agencies. The distinction between government agency and court is important as the manner in which an agency and a court function is different. While a government agency can largely choose to ignore procedural rules, the courts cannot. The courts have very little leeway when it comes to following established procedural rules. For example, the IRS Office of Appeals is an agency. It is clearly not a court and does not try to be a court. IRS Appeals can decide to hear any tax dispute that is brought to it. It does not have to refuse to consider cases that are filed late, or fail technical requirements of proper filing, etc. A court has none of these options. For example, the U.S. Tax Court believes that it cannot consider a case that has a petition that is filed 1 day late. There are other aspects of this, it's a court, but it's not a court nature of the U.S. Tax Court that one has to consider before filing their case in this court.